Okay, welcome to the Special Education Technology Center webinar series. Today is Getting Started with AAC, Augmentative and Alternative Communication. I'm Sarah Kinsella. I'm a speech language pathologist with the SETC. And joining me is Brenda.
Yep, and I'm Brenda Del Monte, and I'm also a speech language pathologist, but we both specialize in AAC.
Yeah, so for those who are new to the Special Ed Technology Center, I just wanted to alert you to a few things. We have these free webinars that you obviously know about because you found this one. We also do consultations for students in Washington State. So if after this webinar you think I want to talk to you about some kids, we can do that, and we can show how to get there. Anything else to add about that, Brenda, or other services?
No, sounds good.
Okay, all right, so we are going to talk about, we're going to look at a few low-tech AAC systems, some high-tech AAC systems, implementation strategies that doesn't matter what system you're using, but you can use these strategies with your students, and a few goal examples for AAC. So when we're talking about augmentative alternative communication, we want to kind of get a few things out there that we know that we're not looking at communication as testing to see what you know. It's not like we've given a student a device and we're saying, okay, now find this, find that. It's not all about naming and identifying. And we know that in schools, yes, we have IEPs and we have goals, and a lot of what we're doing is the testing, but really we want to kind of reframe that and think about teaching and communication and human connection. And I think it's Linda Burkhart says, if I know what you're going to say, it's not communication. We don't know what our students are thinking, right? So it's that genuine interaction that we're looking for, and is the reason that our students are going to talk to us in the first place, right?
And if you're thinking, yeah, but how do we know they meant to communicate that unless we've already asked them, like, find this, find that, and we know that they know. There's other ways to know we know. So we will talk about those implementation strategies, but it's setting up highly motivating situations where we're saying, what do you think? And then they make a selection, and then they experience that language, and then they smile, so you know they meant to, or they pick something else, so they realize it matters which one I touch. So again, setting up environments so that you can still assess reliability to a certain amount, but without that testing component of find this, find that.
Right. We do know that communication is messy, right? And that's okay. It's everywhere. It's all around us. It's in everything we do. A lot of times we're talking to teams. I was mentioning we do consultations, and how do we fit AAC into the day? Well, how do you fit communication into your day? This is just part of everything you're doing, right? It's part of your literacy. It's part of science. It's part of talking about what you did last night or what you ate. So again, it's about why we're communicating, connecting with people. And, you know, we're SLPs, so we're a bit biased. So we think it's the most important thing you can do. All right, here's a little overview. So AAC can be used for lots of different reasons, and we'll talk a little bit about that today. But, you know, the augment part means that it's helping when speech is hard to understand, or it could be an alternative if the student doesn't have verbal speech, or something in between. So a variety of different reasons, different students, different times in their life, or times during the day. Okay, let's hop into low tech. Just as an aside, low tech does not mean it cannot be robust. So low tech, there's lots of different meanings for this, but sometimes we think about low piece and think, oh, it's just low tech. It's so important though. Brenda, you want to talk to us a little bit
Yeah,
about
I mean, sometimes the other thing we think about low tech is that we think about low cognition, and those do not go hand in hand either. So we just have to be careful about how much we attribute that word low. And I think it's low technology because in the picture shown today, everything can be made and printed, and printing is kind of not high tech anymore. And, you know, the step-by-step on the upper right is it takes a 9-volt battery, right? So these are just kind of lower, technology in the sense that it's not advanced technology, but we have a low tech board on the bottom left where you can print these, and you can do this for lots of reasons. You can print these to get started. You can have in model by pointing at these pictures. You can print them in large form to put on up at the classroom or out on your playground, and you can also personalize them, but they don't have voice output.
Right. And so this is an example of a board we made for our district. You can find millions of these online. If you want something that you know you can just easily get and print, go to Project Core, and there are templates that available to print there.
Definitely.
So
then the low tech.
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry.
No, I was just going to ask, what about this eye gaze board? And also,
Okay, the low tech eye gaze board. So if you have kids that have vision, but they can't point to a picture that small, this is literally a low tech eye gaze board that I cut out of a piece of black foam from Michael's, and put a square inside it. And then I use Post-it notes and say, hey, tell me about when did this happen? Was it morning? There's an M. Was it day? There's a D. Was it evening? There's an E. Let me know when this happened. And I can on the fly have people use their eyes to make choices and help me understand what I'm trying to get to the bottom of. So this is, again, it's low tech because it's not voice output, but I'm providing it. So some kids will just look at the one they want. Other kids will have a lot of movement. So they look at the one they want and they look back directly at me through the square. So it's just, each kiddo kind of handles that differently. And some kids have a quadrant preference that I leave blank so that they have to look at the rest of them, but it allows them to use their eyes to access language.
So on this board, Brenda, it could be also that you have symbols, right? Say
yeah.
Students telling a story, you've got some options for who the story is about.
Right.
This one happens to have letters. Do you have students that are using this with high-tech eye gaze?
Yeah, so the best high-tech systems still need to actually come in the backpack, and they still need to be charged, and they still need to have been updated. I mean, I don't know how many times I've turned on the eye gaze device and it's like, oh, 184 updates, hold on. And now you're like stuck. And so being able to use this low tech as an alternative to high tech is part of the game. So, and speaking of, any device that's high tech, when we talk about those, you can screenshot those and print those for your low tech system so they match.
Great. Okay. And then what about this step-by-step?
So the step-by-step is a switch that you record your voice into, and it's a step-by-step because you can actually have it go, you hit the button and it says, itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout. They have to hit it again to hear, down came the rain and washed the spider out. Of course, you can do this with any song all the way up to any cool song for any age group. But you can also do correspondence like, hey, do you want to play a game of Would You Rather? Hey, do you want to hear about my day? I have a joke. Ready? Knock, knock. Right. And you do a series of recordings that allow a person to hit the switch to hold a conversation that was anticipated prior. And then hitting the switches doesn't require a lot of vision. In fact, it doesn't require any vision if they know where the switch is. And so again, as you begin to work with kids with low or no vision, sometimes this is an excellent place to start.
Yeah. And the beauty of these step-by-steps is they can be attached to another switch that you can put wherever that switch side is. Maybe it's their head. You don't have to have that whole big device there, even though it's not that big. Okay, great. I love your song example, Brenda, because that's so engaging for students. And as soon as you did it, I know we all started looking at you.
Well, that's just because I have no shame and I'm singing on a recording. So
Which
there's
we love. There's so many good ways to use that. We put this document, and Brenda, could you put in the chat the link to our notes? Oh, you know what? It's probably on there before. Maybe Miari. We have the link to our handout today. Just want to make sure you guys get that. And this document, which is we put together, it's not all something we're talking about today, but that step-by-step is in there. A few other links, just if you have a budget or something lands in your lap and you don't know what to get, these are a couple things that we talk about often with teams. We also have a switch kit. If you're in the state of Washington, you can borrow things from our lending library for free. And the switch kit includes many of these items, like a low-tech eye gaze board, some engaging activities and switches. Thanks, Brenda.
I was trying to figure out if I have a quick link to that.
I'll grab it while I put all the links in. You know what? I have it here. I put all the links in earlier, so got it.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I forgot that I did that. Oops, did I do that? Okay, here we go.
Because those have active hyperlinks in there. So if you click on that worksheet, it'll take you directly to the vendor or how to buy all those low tech items.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's hop into high tech AAC.
So
this could be a whole thing.
This could be, yeah, every single one of these slides could be its own class, but you guys wanted a quick and dirty. So here we are. So from left to right, we have the grid pad. We have NovaChat, we have Accent, we have Tobii Dynavox, and all those little squares at the bottom are apps on the iPad. And actually, if you go to apps on the iPad for AAC, I think there's about 150 at any given time on there. These are some more commonly used ones. And with Better Speech and Hearing Month coming up, a lot of these applications are actually a 50% off or so. Keep an eye out in the next week or so. Especially Technology Center will post those sales that are coming up. But these are essentially communication devices with voice output. So you touch the button and it speaks. You look at a button with your eyes and it speaks, or you use a switch to row column over to a certain button and it speaks.
So Brenda, I don't remember timing wise, but did we think we were going to show two of these?
We were going to do that in an eye gaze class, which is next week.
Okay.
This one we're just I mean, I actually can reflect my iPad if you'd like to see some of the top apps. Would that be best?
Well, how about put it in the chat? What do you guys want to hear? Do you want to see some of those? We'll go with your feedback. Yeah, we got a yes. That's a yes. Thank you. Okay, so while she's working on that, let me see where we're, okay. So as she's getting that set up, thank you, Brenda, for being so flexible about that. If you want to know more about AAC and AT vendors and you just want a quick place to go, maybe you're sending parents there or your team, or it's for yourself, you could check out the Northwest Augmentative Communication Society, we call it NWACS. And they have, their website has just grown phenomenally the last couple of years. But one thing to direct you to is this resources page. I'm going to put a link to it here for you. They have a whole list of vendors and examples. They have even what is AAC section. So I would definitely check that out as a good resource. And let's see, Brittany says there's 2 apps I'm not familiar with here. I think maybe both are text-based. If there's time, I'd be interested in seeing those. Okay, so it could be the Proloquo for text and probably Predictable is what I'm thinking, Brittany. Yeah, okay.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, thanks.
Let me, oh, except for I'm not, because my iPad's in the way on my screen to share my screen. So just a moment. Okay, so you might have to tell me which ones were on there, but let me just start with Touch Chat. Touch Chat is an application with predictive language. So when I touch the letter I, the whole screen goes green because after the letter I in the English language, there is a verb. So
Eat.
and then it's predicted that because you've just said eat, you might want food. So it's automatically taken the user to a food page.
Cookie. Cookies. I eat cookies.
And so that is a higher level. If I go down to a simpler level,
I want to play 5 frogs.
so you can make it, this application has lots of different levels of what it can do. That's Touch Chat. I'm just going to do like literally quick and dirty, guys. This is Proloquo to go. It's more word by word based.
I want go places. Home. I want go home.
And this also through the settings, you can make it a lot simpler if you want to.
I want more feelings. Love. I want love.
That was Proloquo to go. Lamp, on the other hand, is 84 buttons. No, you can hide some, but they never get bigger like I showed you. It's always 84 squares. So even if you hide some, they're now the squares are going to be this size. So this does have to account for some better visual motor skills. Lamp is, every word is 2 or 3 hits away. So when I hit the letter I, it doesn't say I till I hit that again.
I want eat popcorn.
Also, when I'm in it stands for language acquisition through motor planning, just like you sit down at a keyboard with A, S, D, F, and your fingers start to take off and it remembers where everything is. They are taking that you are going to learn motor plans to get to words. So every time you try to find a word, you start at this page. So if I do eat, I'm going to hit eat and then the green verb eat, and it's going to close. If I want to find, I'm going to eat and then my category and then my food.
Cracker.
And if I want to say crackers and bananas, I'm still going to go back to eat crackers. Oops. Eat fruit, banana.
Banana.
So every word you start at the beginning, you're not able to stay within a category. That is lamp.
Brenda, so Brittany was wondering about predictable or Proloquo for text.
Yes,
Either of those, Candy?
I do. I have Proloquo for text is here.
What about you? Pleased to meet you. Pleased to meet you.
Okay, so let me see if I can close that. Oh, so the way that this works is it has pre-programmed phrases on the left, things that they've said historically on the right. And so you can have things like my name is ready to go, but then when you want to text, it pulls up the keyboard from within the iPad. This is not an adjustable keyboard. You don't connect it to a different keyboard, but it does have word prediction. So, and then you can make it speak when you want it to.
My name is Brenda.
It doesn't speak till you hit the play button. So yeah, it works for an older user and somebody who is literate, but also with these pre-programmed phrases, there is you can program more and more with that. Stories, medical appointments, health information, like these can be meals can be like common orders at Starbucks and different things like that. This is also Proloquo for text and Proloquo to go. Both of them are compatible with your iPhone. So again, typically maybe this Proloquo for text would be for a slightly older user, possibly more responsible and allowed to have some kind of iPhone and have enough text and literacy skills to perform that, but very, very user-friendly as far as taking it out into the community. That is Proloquo for text.
Those are definitely on sale during April. So
yeah. And Predictable is a text-based as well. This actually goes on sale starting today through, I think, April 4th. And so you type, let's see.
Hello.
It's interesting because I'm not seeing the actual word prediction on there, which is normally is. And then there are phrases here as well, favorites, chat words, help words, food and drink orders, questions, my family. So I'm just moving through this. And there's a component of when in you can send these as well when you're in Wi-Fi, like through text, through email and things like that as well. And then there's word prediction across the top, right?
Hello.
So there is a lot to this one. This one is switch accessible. And so if you go into the access method and go into accessibility, there is screen tap, so using the screen as a switches, head tracking, eye tracking to some extent, and scan and track. So there's a lot of alternative access methods for this particular keyboard.
And Brenda mentioned next week, we're going to talk Tuesday at noon, we're going to talk about eye gaze, and head tracking will be one of the things we talk about if you're interested in that.
Yeah.
Brenda, thank you for doing this on the fly. That's perfect.
Sure.
Okay. All right. That is an overview, possibly an overwhelming overview because there's so much, but now you've got a little taste of what we're looking at. Check out this website we were telling you about with NWACS. Okay. So we've just touched on it a little bit, but not all your students are using their finger to access AAC. Some are using a switch, some might be using eye gaze. Next week, we'll talk about eye gaze more. That's what you see down here in this picture. But there are so many different ways to access AAC. And you have students who may use multiple methods. They may use eye gaze and then need to use something else in the afternoon or different parts of their day. Anything to add about this, Brenda?
So it's just that, you know, direct select is a fancy word for you that they use in their hand. Honestly, eye gaze is technically direct select as well, right? Because it's just, they look straight at it and it activates it. But for some reason, we don't really think of it in that flat format. Switches is a whole different ballgame. And oftentimes switches come with auditory preview. So they're listening to, they're using maybe one switch to say bubbles, music, goldfish crackers, and then when they hear the one they want, they hit the other switch and says, I want bubbles. So there's an auditory preview is the vocabulary that is, but basically it's like a clue bubbles. And then there's your, so that's your scan. And then the other switch would be your select. On the device, it can mean that it's doing linear one by one, or it can be doing row and column, which also can have auditory preview, but most usually requires some vision for those people to be successful. People can use 2 switches with auditory preview, meaning listening to choices and hitting the switch when you hear the one you want, even if you're completely blind. And that's something that's accessible on the high-tech devices, as well as on GoTalk, which is one app I didn't show you because it pretty much comes blank and you build the pages according to your client's needs. So that is the skinny on switch access. We have lots of recordings on switch access in our YouTube channel, and Heidi Brislin continues to teach classes on switch access. So there's more resources available for that.
Definitely. Okay. So no matter what device your students are using, there's some basic concepts that you're going to want to think about with working with students using AAC and complex communication. We're looking at initiation. We're talking about modeling. We're going to go on this in a minute. We don't want to over prompt. In fact, just wait time, which is what we're going to talk about, is kind of that first level. We're not taking their hand and making them point to something. That's not communication, right? And we don't know what they're going to say, right? And we want to keep it natural and embed it throughout the day. So 3 quick strategies we'll talk about are these: modeling, wait time, and open-ended questions. So when you think of modeling, we're talking about using a device and showing the symbols as we're talking. So, you know, when typically developing kids hear hundreds and thousands of words before they begin to speak, right? We don't wait till a child turns 1 to start talking to them. They're hearing it, experiencing it. And so the idea is we are going to do the same thing with AAC. We're modeling it. We're showing them. Like Brenda said, how do we know they wanted that song? Well, they're selecting it and they're experiencing it. They're learning that language as we do it. We know that picture symbols aren't always easy to recognize. And so they need to be explained and experienced and shown. And for that same concept, sometimes the you know, a letter is a symbol. Sometimes you use the word instead, just as an aside. So, and then there's this research here that children who use AAC may need to see a symbol used in context during the day for something meaningful more than 300 times before we can expect them to realize it. So
having said that, we do know that, like, babies, we're talking 1-year-olds, get a hold of your phone and somehow open Netflix, and that's just the letter N, right? So typically developing kids have symbolic language really early on, around 9 months, and many of our kids don't have cognitive delays just because they're in complicated bodies. So we're not assuming that before we let them touch it, we're showing it 300 times. So there's a mix between recognizing the level of modeling required for some kids with intellectual disabilities and honoring the fact that not every complicated body that requires communication assistance has that delay that requires that level. And we're always letting them explore their own system so that they can show us what they know.
Yeah, thanks for distinguishing that. That's a great point. So when you're modeling, you're modeling what you're saying. You might not be touching every word that you're saying, but it looks like you like that. And you might just be touching like. You're thinking about the individual student, right? It's not the same for every student. You're thinking about the language that you're targeting. What's your goal? Again, in all of this, we still want to make it fun, meaningful communication. And just so you know, like when you hear, out there, that aided language input, there's so many different terms for it, or modeling, just so you can hear that. Gail Van Tatenhove is someone who is just amazing in the world of AAC, and she said once at a conference that our goal is to model 20 times per hour for some students. So just to think about, with all of this and kids learning AAC, that we're presuming that they have the potential to learn this, and we know they can, but we also it's not happening just when the SLP comes in for those speech sessions, right? This is something that's happening, got to happen all the time, all throughout the day and at home. Okay, just a bit more about what you're thinking about when you're modeling. Are you targeting vocabulary? Are you targeting social interaction? So, and then what is your rate when you're modeling? Think about it, are you blowing through it? Are you going too fast? Can you slow down and target certain things? Okay.
One more thing about that,
yeah,
was that many people will say, well, then I have to know where all the words are before I can model. And so I don't want that to be the case. You can actually model fumbling through. You can actually model exploration. Like, I have something to tell you. I wonder if it's in your device, your talk, or your system. Let me see what I can do here. Let me see. Okay, it's about a girl. You can be really out loud and metacognitive about it and say, so I think I'm going to go into your people page and see if there's the word girl in there, because that's where I think I would find girl. Or I bet you have the question of who is in my story. And I bet if I go to questions, I can find that word who. So if I find, so then I'm looking in questions and I find who, and I go into I can't find people. And I just go, well, I can't find people. You can either continue with your story, or most systems have find word opportunities. So they have like little, almost like magnifying glasses, where you can hit search and type in the word and it'll walk you through where the word is. That can be found on spell pages in many of the different applications. And you can even Google, this is the name of the device. This is what I've got. Is there a find a word? Is there a help me find this? It's okay if you're not proficient, and they are much more likely to fumble around with you. And if you've shown the vulnerability of, I don't know where that word is either. I don't know if, what are some of those words, right? I don't know if, solid, liquid, or gas is in here, but I do know that a rock is solid, and I think there's nature, and here's a rock, right? So you can just begin to model, how would you talk around a word you can't find? So don't wait till you're an expert to be a modeler. Be an expert modeler, even if you're exploring to find words.
Definitely, yeah. And then you're also letting other adults in the room know it's okay to get in there and try, and to make mistakes, because communication is messy, and that's okay.
And it's not a mistake. It never is. It's just the way it is.
Great. Okay. We talked about wait time a little bit with prompting. So wait time is one of the most important things, I think, because not only are you letting your student go through the process of processing language and getting ready to create the message that they want to say, or you're also giving them the respect of knowing, I know you have something to say, and I know I'm going to be there waiting for you to hear it, because I think you're important, and I think what you're going to say is important. And I'll put a shout out to Brenda's book, because Brenda here wrote a book called I See You in There, and actually I have the link in the chat. Brenda, what is your quote on wait time?
Oh gosh, quoting myself. I think it says something about how waiting says that I believe in you.
Yeah, that's right.
Because it says that I believe that you have something to say. I believe that you're generating it in your head. I believe it takes time for you to generate your idea and then create a motor plan to touch all the right buttons or access all the right things to tell me this. And I believe whatever you have to tell me is worthy of my weight.
Thank you, Brenda. Yes. So if you do want to know a little bit more about AAC, but also just hear experiences and stories, Brenda is such a great storyteller. Her book will go there, and it's all about human connection and this piece. So that's in there for you to check out.
Thank you.
I think it was also Gail Van Taten, who we mentioned before, who said this concept of auditory clutter with wait time, that if we keep interrupting that wait time, it's starting this whole, not only is it not saying I'm waiting for you, I believe in you, but you're starting this whole process over again of they're planning it in their head, they're getting ready to say it. So I loved that idea of auditory clutter. Brenda, we do have time if
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. So set this up here.
Yeah, I have a video of my boy who I was going to teach how to tell stories. And he is using he has very limited vision. He is using switches to listen to choices with his head and then moving his hand, I believe. I can't remember. I think he's using his hand to cycle through the choices, then using his head switch to hit the switch when he hears the one he wants. And it's a longer video, but it gives you some sense of the idea around wait time. I will tell you that he, I think, had just turned 4 in this video. He's young, and if he can do it, anyone can. He even has little seizures in there that I've clipped out, but it shows you the really intelligent mind behind the complicated body. So let me share it with you. So go ahead.
Okay. So for those of you who are here live with us in the webinar, we saw an amazing video about wait time with a student. But for those who weren't, it's cut out. So we're moving on to open-ended questions. Go ahead, Brenda.
So we want to use some open-ended questions like, what should we do? What song should we listen to? What do you want? Let's choose a book in the library. What topic? What do you want to learn about? And so that we can keep things as broad as possible. And so you're also not asking too many questions. You can also move to yes and no when it makes sense, right? You saw what I moved to yes and no because his device was very simple in the story we just watched. And at some point I was like, I don't have all the choices around pain in your device yet. So let me switch to yes, no on that.
Right. And I think the other point about the yes, no is that going back to teaching, testing, we're not saying like, is this red? Is this blue? Right? We're not doing that kind of yes, no. This is like clarification and opinion with yes, no when it's happening.
Right. We're not doing testing yes, no.
Right. I wanted to share a neat example I saw at the Experimental Education Unit, EEU, if you're familiar with it, at part of UW, University of Washington. My son went to preschool there, and I remember I was actually thinking about these strategies at this time for this class I was doing, and I went in and I saw above, they have these centers at the school there, and then in the classroom they had like an art center and a literacy center. And obviously we know this communication is happening everywhere all the time, but they had hanging from the ceiling little cards with some example open-ended questions, because it's a learning place where therapists and teachers are going to learn and get experiences. But I just thought that was a great idea for a lot of classrooms, so above the literacy center, it had some example questions like, what do you think they'll do next? Where do you think that character is going? The art was like, oh, I wonder what is happening in your picture, rather than, is that red? In the art, like, who cares? So that was a cute strategy that I saw.
That is neat.
This is a quote and picture directly from Brenda's book. I guess I was going to plug it here, but a theme in all we do, and even in this, introductory AAC class, especially in this class, is that human connection. And why would someone want to communicate with you and take all that time, like you saw in the video, that wait time? Well, he and Brenda had a connection, right? And he wanted to share it, and he also had something else that he wanted to share. So if you want to learn more about this or hear some more stories, if you liked that video and you want to hear more, I would recommend reading Brenda's book. I'm also putting this here because we need to think about that human connection when we think about goals, right? And what is meaningful when we think about goals. One of the objectives here in our class is that we were going to give you some goal examples. Everything we're listing is about why are we writing goals? Why are we communicating? So this first link, and I think I'll make sure you guys have a link to these handouts, but is from Linda Burkhart and Gail Porter, who do all kinds of work in this field. And you might have heard them mentioned with a low-tech communication system that's very robust, meaning there's a lot of language involved, called POD, Pragmatic Organized Dynamic Display. And so they have goals around authentic communication, the reasons people communicate, the functions of language, like you saw in the video, to say something's wrong, to share a story, to be close to someone. Goals that matter is from Practical AAC. If you want to know more about AAC and you want to find some resources quickly, definitely go to this website and just type in whatever it is you're thinking about. You'll find it there probably. And then Lauren Enders is another great resource. She has 1,000,003 things posted every day about AAC and related, but her Pinterest page has links to all sorts of goals and other stuff you can see on the left side, but all sorts of ideas if you have time to dig around in here. Brenda, what else did you want to add about goals?
I think the only thing that I think about when I write goals is, and if you're new to the field, you might not know the pitfalls, so we will just warn you from them. A lot of times it'll say like, oh, they will learn their colors in 8 out of 10 trials. And the only way to do that is to say, find red 10 times and hope that 8 times they still care about the answer. And so instead of that, that can be a preschool goal, that they know their colors, and the preschool teacher can determine alternative ways for them to demonstrate that knowledge. But when we're talking about communication goals, it's more about the function of the language, and as a goal like that they will initiate language, that they will initiate a conversation, that they will participate in turn taking with 3 exchanges over something that they're interested in, that they will ask a question, that they will answer a question, not necessarily an answer like, is this red, but again, related to a topic of interest or a topic of their choice. And so you're able to stay within that authentic communication and conversation style, particularly as they get older, and without bringing that testing feel into your goals.
Right. Thanks. So definitely check, if what Brenda said makes sense and you want to learn more, check out this first link that we shared from Burkhart and Porter. That brings us to the end of today. So I'm going to stop the recording.